We've heard a lot of Utah Jazz YouTubers talk about how trading Lauri Markkanen is a good idea in an attempt to tank for Cooper Flag. And we have even seen insiders begin to talk about it. We here at the Full Court Press wanted to chime in and talk a bit how we think that we should not trade Lauri Markkanen. We're even seeing some implications that Walker Kessler may be moved in the offseason. With this pickup of Eubanks. Like, what? Well, we're going to explain why we shouldn't trade either of these guys, but before we do that, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below your thoughts on this whole thing. We have a goal to try and respond to every comment on the video, so feel free to tell us we're stupid, or we might just be onto something. So I'd say most everyone loves the Finnish phenom, and how he has impacted the Utah Jazz. He would be one of the most lethal second or third options on any team, and with his versatility, could fit with any team. Well, the argument is essentially that we are too good to get a top 4 to 5 pick with Lauri on the team, but not good enough to make the play-in or the playoffs because the team is just not good and we can't get a supporting cast. It appears like it's been that way the past few seasons where Ainge has kind of one foot in the door of let's make the playoffs and another foot in the door of let's tank. And so we end up getting these mid-late lottery picks. Well, next year has people really excited as it has franchise-altering players, and I can buy into that. I think the top 3 to 4 guys could be franchise-altering, not just Cooper included. And for Kessler, well, it seems like he had a bit of an off year, which is normal, but with an injury and then having Collins take his place. Makes sense why he could be unhappy. I mean, we're hearing rumors that he was unhappy with what was going on in Utah and that him and Hardy were not really getting along. Now we're seeing some trade rumors around Kessler as well, and we have even seen Drew Eubanks, like I was mentioning before, picked up recently for the Jazz. Now let me remind you guys now, the Utah Jazz have Kessler, John Collins, Drew Eubanks now, and Filipowski. Just seems that a trade is inevitable. Well, let me tell you guys, and let us kind of break down why we think the Jazz shouldn't really trade Lauri or Kessler. All right, Doc D. So what are your thoughts on the trade rumors, and do you think we need to move off of Lauri to get a top 4 pick?
All right, I've been thinking about this for a while, really pondering this thought too, JD, because I love Lauri Markkanen. I know you love Lauri. Everyone in Utah loves this guy. In my opinion, he's a top 5 shooting forward. I think, if you wanted to try to debate that, the farthest he would slide would be 6 or 7, which is still within the top 10 of that position. I really would. I don't want to trade him. I got to be honest. I don't want to trade him. I love him, man. He has some of the lowest usage rate of anyone who creates his production in the league. He has some of the best catch and shoot numbers for a guy his size. He knows how to play team basketball. And he was really unlocked by Will Hardy's system. I would hate to trade Lauri Markkanen. Now, do I think we need to move off of him to get a top 4 pick?
Yeah, I feel like that's the main.
Possibly, because he's very good. He's very, very good. And I have a hard time seeing us being in the bottom 4 of the league in terms of, like, if we keep him, he's just that good. He helps us win games. I mean, he had a career high of 49 points. I think it wasn't last season, but the season before that. And before he got injured last season, he put up 39 and 12 in an overtime game versus the Suns. He's a phenomenal player. I would hate to move on from him. However, I think if the front office is really trying to get a top 4 pick, then they're going to have to move off of Lauri Markkanen, which is really gut-wrenching to say. But I also kind of understand both sides of that coin. We never really embraced the rebuild because we got a gem like Lauri Markkanen, and no one knew how good he was going to be. And all of a sudden, he was, bam, an all-star the first year he was with us. And he could have been an all-star last year as well, in my opinion. He was definitely getting votes for that. So I don't know, man. Like, you made an interesting point to me earlier, and I want you to expand on that, because I
Yeah.
was in the line of thinking that we would have to move off of Lauri,
Mhm.
but you gave a
Yeah.
great take.
Let me give some
Yeah,
pushback here.
yeah,
So
please.
I was under that same notion. I was like, I feel like Ainge is kind of screwing this up. Like he's got one foot in the door. He wants to be a playoff team the first half of the season, and then the back half of the season he just trades everybody and tanks. But it's like, why didn't you just do that from the start of the season? I mean, you never know how good we're gonna be, and so I guess there's that. Like that first year where we had Vanderbilt, Conley, those
Hmm.
guys, that squad, we were good, and then we started talking trade rumors. You were putting people on the market like Beasley, and then you started to see some performance dips, and then you start to see those guys get traded, and then quote unquote injuries, you know what I mean? And so we end up
Yep.
becoming one of the worst teams, but we only get the ninth pick. Same thing this year. I mean, we weren't
Mhm.
necessarily off to a hot start like we did that first rebuild year, but we ended up being one of the worst teams. I think the worst team on the back half of the All-Star break, and we end up with the 10th pick. So
Right.
what's going on here? Well, let me break this down for you guys, for you Jay, or for you Doc D, and for everybody. This is my opinion. You take it as you want, but
I think it's a
if we
solid
keep
one, though.
Lowry, if we keep Lowry, we're still going to be awful, and here's why. We have three players coming in to our rotation. At least this is what we're assuming, right? We've got
Hmm.
three players, three rookies coming into our rotation that are rookies. So they're going to be turnover prone. They're not going to be good, and they're not really going to be contributing to winning. They're going to
Right.
show flashes of greatness, right? We're going to see, whoa, that was a sweet move. But they're just not NBA ready. They're not LeBron James. And so what's going to happen is
Sure.
they're going to bring us down. Now, on top of that, we've got three guys that are coming into their second year. Three
Hmm.
guys that are still developing deeply. You know, we forget that Keontae George had a ton of turnovers. He showed flashes of greatness. And we're hoping that, there's improvement every step of the way. But to think that we're gonna have six guys with only like a year to 2 years under their belt with like in our starting rotation is just like there's no way we're gonna be good. Doesn't matter if we have Lowry, doesn't matter if we have Paul George,
Hmm.
whoever, whatever superstar, we're still going to be bad. Now, how bad is the real question? And this is what I think. If you take a look at the Western Conference, guys, I mean, let's just look at it real fast. We've got the Thunder,
There's
they're
at
a
least 12
playoff lock.
teams competing for a playoff spot at a
Exactly.
minimum. Yeah.
Thunder, playoff lock. Nuggets, playoff lock. Wolves, playoff lock.
Barring
Clippers are
injuries.
still going
Yeah.
to be good.
Hmm.
Clippers, I think, are still going to be good despite them
Mm.
losing Paul George. They're
They're
going to
going
have
to
Kawhi
take a
Leonard, James
massive
Harden.
step back. I don't think Kawhi. That's a topic for a different day, though. We can go over Kawhi Leonard some other
Okay,
time.
I wouldn't say massive, but I don't think they're going to be out of the playoffs. The Mavericks are a playoff lock. The Suns, debatable, but they're playing playoffs. Lakers, I think play in playoffs. The Pelicans, I think they're a lock. The Kings, I think, are going to be good. The Warriors around that. The Rockets are getting better. And have we forgotten about the Memphis Grizzlies? We're going to
Hmm.
be getting Ja Morant
They're
back.
all healthy
I mean,
again.
guys, the Jazz were the 12th seed and the Grizzlies were the 13th seed in the West. They're going to be better than us. And
Oh,
likely the
without a doubt.
Spurs, you know what? I might go out on a limb and say the Spurs could easily be better than the Jazz.
Oh,
So,
I don't think that's
yes,
going on a limb at all, JD. Like, they just signed Chris Paul to a 1 year, $11
mhm,
million contract, and we know what Chris Paul brings. What happened when he went to OKC? Everyone, including myself, I thought, well, that's where you go to have your career die, because that's where they were at that time. And Chris Paul willed them to the playoffs. He has an even better player next to him now in Victor Wembanyama. Like,
mhm.
they could absolutely make the playoffs. Absolutely.
So this is a question I want to pose to you, Doc,
Mhm.
because in my mind, the Jazz are going to be bottom six, almost no matter what. Bottom 6 to 7 max. I mean, there's going to
Okay.
be teams in the Eastern Conference that could be worse than us, but we're going to be bad. So if the Utah Jazz are bottom 6 or 7, is that enough for you to want to keep Lowry versus we'd end up bottom 3 or 4 and maybe trade up?
I want to keep Lauri regardless. I love Lauri Markkanen. Honestly, I think that I'm in full belief that if we land somewhere in the bottom 6, let's say we land 6 or 7, we're still going to get a franchise-changing player in the 2025 draft. JD, you and I have been looking at this draft. We've been watching this draft like class now for almost 2 years. Okay, we knew who Cooper Flagg was like 2 years ago. We knew Ace Bailey. We know VJ Edgecombe. And there's more guys. The guy BYU just picked up.
Hopper too.
Yeah, we're talking about
Harper's good.
17 5-star recruits in this class. That is historic. That is insane. That means by the time you're getting to the mid-20s, you're still getting 4-star recruits. Like that. This is a very saturated draft talent-wise. So I think that if you land anywhere in the top 8, you're probably going to get a franchise player. I really believe that. And if the Jazz target, like I was looking at CBS Sports, and they have VJ Edgecombe going 7. If we land at 7, I would love to take him. Right now his comps are Dwayne Wade. Like that's a no-brainer to me. I think that if the Jazz land somewhere in the top 6 or 7, they would have enough to trade up to get whatever player they wanted. And like I agree with you. I don't know if we have to let Lauri Markkanen go.
That's what I'm getting at is – oh, go ahead.
Well, however, we also have to take into account the fact that Lauri would like to win now. Like he would like to make the playoffs. He wants to continue to develop. And if he sees that we are not trying to be competitive at this moment, I don't know if he'd ask out because European players normally never do that. But I feel like it would be slightly disrespectful to not get his input on this. Like he is our guy right now. He's our pillar. Like we should be talking. And I'm sure the front office is. I'm sure they're talking with Lauri about the direction they're trying to head, especially. And you know what? We both saw what's being reported. The Jazz made a pass at Mikal Bridges. They obviously got outbid for an obscene amount of draft picks in Bojan Bogdanovic from the Knicks. By the way, the Knicks are probably, if they stay healthy, the Knicks are going to be my pick for next year. I think that that's the most dangerous team in the league right now, if they all stay healthy. But they were trying to make a pass at Mikal Bridges, the Utah Jazz, so they can entice Paul George. So it's not like the front office isn't trying. I think that Utah, as much as we love it here, geographically, this is not a place players like to come to normally. And it is what it is, unfortunately. There's no nightlife here in Utah. You can't buy alcohol on Sundays. It's just how it is here. It's a very homogeneously white state, and sometimes that can be a turnoff to players. Even Donovan Mitchell said he had struggles here. Well, I'm not hating on
a lot of small.
I love this place.
Right.
That's why I live.
I just want to point out that there's a lot of small markets. Like, I don't think that Phoenix is like. I guess maybe I don't want to go down that path, but I think there's a lot of markets. Like, I don't think Phoenix is this gigantic market. Yet they keep landing like great players. Like, I think if you have franchise alternate players,
market in Utah.
Like Denver. What about Denver? I don't think
Denver
these guys
got lucky with Nikola.
That's the thing.
Jokic.
It's like if you land a player, then you can get pieces from that. Like, I don't think people are generally going to be wanting to like go to, 20 of the 30 teams unless they show potential. Like Orlando, for instance, I doubt anybody's going to Orlando.
Even Denver
is having
struggles right now. Like they just lost KCP, they lost Bruce Brown. KCP went to Orlando. So, and this is crazy too. And I'm not reporting anything, obviously, but I think it's very strange that Jamal Murray has not signed his extension yet.
I don't think it means anything. He's probably trying to get as much money as he can.
but they're offering him the max amount right now. I think that's a little odd, personally. I think that Denver has their struggles as a small market, and so do we, and that's just how it is. But full circle, if we're in the bottom 6, I do believe that is enough.
Yeah,
because if
I think so
let's
too.
say we let's say we target a guy who's in the top 3. Okay, if we trade 6, 16, and 27 in this year's draft, and then a pick for next year, and then a good player as well, I have a hard time believing that whoever is holding on to the number 3 pick is not going to give it to us. Because all of those teams that suck, just like we will, they're all looking at the future. And if we give them future assets, I think that would be enough to tip the scale.
Yeah, I think that it could satisfy, both parties of Utah Jazz fans that either want to trade him or they don't want to trade him. I think we still have potential to get that top pick or one of those top picks. And maybe not Cooper Flagg, but I think Cooper Flagg's a pipe dream. It's you only have a 12% chance to get him anyway. So
it could be, but I mean, the Hawks got what were they supposed to be? Weren't they 10 and they got bumped to 1?
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
That only reinforces what I'm saying, though, Doc. I think that what that just means is that anybody can get it. I mean, if we finish 8th, bottom 8, we could still get the number 1. You never know. But
yes, and if we get Cooper Flagg, oh my,
it'd be awesome. Well,
that kid,
let me ask you something, Doc.
Our draft class is amazing. What's up?
With all this trade talk, how likely do you think that we're going to move Markkanen?
Great question.
I mean,
right now,
reported it.
I'm pulling. We just saw a report from Woj saying that Golden State is trying to move in on Markkanen. We all know how Danny Ainge is, and you and I talked about this a little before the pod. We don't believe that Golden State has the assets to give up that are going to meet the threshold that will be Danny Ainge's ransom. He's going to want something at least comparable to what was given for Mikal Bridges, because what was it? 7 draft picks. You had 4 unprotected. You had 1 that was protected. You had a second rounder,
1 pick swap.
Bojan Bogdanovic, which is insane. So I think that Danny Ainge, whoever he comes in contact with, he rakes him over hand and fist. The man's a genius when it comes to trades. That's why they call him Trader Danny. But I don't know, man. I don't know if there's a team out there besides the Thunder that's going to have enough to get Lauri Markkanen away from the Jazz. So I could see.
If you had to guess a percentage.
Low, very low, somewhere in the 20 to 30% range, because it's going to take a package that's going to blow the Jazz away for them to be like, okay, you can have him.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a lot of teams. There's only a couple teams out there that can do that. The Spurs could try to do it. The Spurs have 11 draft picks, I believe. But how many are they willing to really give away is the question. And same with the Thunder. The Thunder have been exceptionally patient. I don't think that they're in any rush to do anything either, because they're in an incredible spot. I don't think the Warriors have enough. And that's really what it boils down to, is Danny Ainge is going to ask for a king's ransom the same way he did for Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. And there's just not a lot of teams that can give that. That's just how it is. So, and I agree with your point as well. I don't know if we have to move on from him, because you're right. We have 6 guys on the roster who are under the age of 20, so we're not going to be very good. And that's fine. That's probably best for the franchise. All right, JD, I got a question for you. So we have seen a lot of reports that the Utah Jazz are willing to move on from Walker Kessler. Now, I think personally this might be a mistake, because I love Walker, and I'm sure all the fans here in Utah do as well. But what's really going on here? I mean, we drafted Kyle Filipowski, right? At 32, great pickup. But then we also took Drew Eubanks and we signed him to a 2-year deal for $5 million annually. So it seems like we have a clog now at the 5 position, especially if we decide to keep John Collins there. JD, what do you think is going on with Walker Kessler?
Well, there's definitely a logjam that's just been created. I don't think we would be signing Eubanks if there wasn't somebody that was about to be traded. So expect it in the next couple days, maybe a week and a half, I don't know. Somebody's getting traded. And I think, unfortunately, all signs are pointing towards Kessler. We've heard rumors about how Kessler wasn't happy with the direction that the Jazz were going. I mean, and I don't really blame him. He came into this year, having a great last year, the rookie year, and then he struggled. He had that injury.
He did, yep.
Slowed him down a little bit, and then John Collins kind of moved into the center position for the rest of the season. The guy was, a bench player, and if I were him, I'd be upset. I'd be unhappy, and I don't think it's that uncommon to have players get upset for a little bit of time with, the franchise. But do I think it means that we need to move off of him? I mean, I don't know the internals of what's going on, but I definitely don't think so. If it was just, we could move past that, which that was my understanding. I've heard some stuff where they were able to kind of move past that, but who knows? I mean, maybe Kessler's still unhappy. Maybe there's a market for him, but the guy
there's definitely a market for Walker Kessler.
He hasn't hit his ceiling is the thing, I look at people like Isaiah Hartenstein, who just got traded to OKC. He's a great player, and he's a tough guy, tough, gritty guy. He reminds me of Kessler. I mean, Kessler is going to be an all-NBA defensive player at some point in his career, maybe multiple times. It's
I agree.
Why would you give up on a guy like that? You know what I mean? And so it's only his second year, had a bit of a slump year, but he could easily have a bounce back year and be incredible, So I don't think we should trade him at all. If we trade him, it's stupid. But
I wouldn't agree.
It seems like it's kind of moving towards that.
Yeah, I think the big issue is Will Hardy likes to play a 5-out system, and I understand why. It works very well.
Doesn't.
But with that said,
cut you off. It's just dumb.
What is a 5-out?
They don't need to. You don't have to do a 5-out system. We saw the Mavericks didn't need to do it. We saw the Knicks, who they did fall out in the second round. But
Kyrie Irving, though, we don't have Kyrie Irving or Luka Doncic, and the system that
Will Hardy
is running helped unlock Lauri Markkanen. So I think it's just a double-edged sword. If Walker could, I think Walker could develop a 3-point shot. Is the thing we've seen him. He shot 2 last year and made 1 of them. The kid could develop that.
Doc, we didn't have a 5-out system when he was playing his first year, and he was 3rd in Rookie of the Year ballot. And that's when Lauri was unlocked. Right,
but that's what they're moving forward with is a 5-out system, and that does equal success. I mean, look at the Boston Celtics. They run a 5-out system. Look what just happened. I love Walker. I know you love Walker. I wouldn't move on from a kid who has that much defensive latent ability, but I'm also not in the front office. So I'm not really sure what they're going to do with him. I would love to keep him. I think that him and Filipowski would be, our centers of the future. I really like Kyle Filipowski. I know you do too. And we love Walker Kessler. I mean, the guy's a defensive master. I wouldn't want to move on from him. I would be trying to get rid of John Collins, personally. As much as I like John, the whole PED scandal when he put up his best numbers of 21 and 12, that sours me a little bit. And it kind of creates an unrealistic expectation. Okay, well, now we know this guy is probably always just going to be a 15-8 guy. And for $25 million,
you want to expound on that a little bit? Because I don't know if a lot of people even know about that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. But basically what happened was after his breakout year, where he averaged 21 points, and I think 12 rebounds or 10 rebounds with Atlanta, that's when he got the massive contract that he did. He popped for PEDs and was suspended, which is really unfortunate, because it really changes how you view John Collins, like the athleticism, the bounciness. Like there are PEDs out there that will increase your athleticism to like superhuman, levels. So it kind of sucks there. And, we got him for Rudy Gay in a second rounder, but he's not going anywhere. No one's taking him. So we would have to attach draft capital to get rid of John Collins. But, he's also clogging up the center position. I would like to see Filipowski play. I want to see more Kessler play. And Lauri loves Walker Kessler, man. Like, I wouldn't want to move on from Kessler unless it was completely necessary. And like, the last thing we want to do is trade more guys that are friends with Lauri Markkanen. We already made that mistake with Simone Fontecchio. And the reason why was because Detroit told us straight up, like, we're going to pay this dude like $15 million a year. And we like didn't want to pay him that, but I don't want to move on from any more guys that help Lauri feel that sense of unity, especially if we want to keep him. We already guaranteed his contract. The $18 million is guaranteed. It happened on June 28th, as it should have. But we should be trying to put together a roster of guys that complement Lauri. I think Kessler complements Lauri very well, and I just wouldn't move on from him. So with that said, I don't know what the Utah Jazz are going to do. We have a ton of centers now, so we're going to have to wait and see.
Thank you for watching another episode of the Full Court Press NBA podcast. For the full podcast, click the link below and subscribe for more hoops content.